John Lee Real Estate, find you the best rate. All throughout Philly like Schuylkill Expressway. Talking to people who out of the 215, even the 267.
Hello, this is John Lee, your local real estate agent here in the greater Philadelphia area. I am here with Susan Kim. We are going to change the brakes on some of you guys. I know that a lot of people who I've been interviewing either had to deal with being an entrepreneur, running their own business, or in some cases in real estate. But Susan is a Division I volleyball coach and very unique in nature. And I'm very happy to have her as a guest. So, Susan, if you can give our audience a brief introduction about yourself and what you got going on here.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
Sure.
My name's Susan Kim. I am the head coach here at Lemoyne College in Syracuse, New York. I started the job July 1st, and I physically moved up here the beginning of August. So I've been coaching in the Division I landscape now for the last 4 or 5 years. But I've been at the Division I level before. I've also coached at the Division II level, high school, and even ran my own club for about 13, 14 years. So I kind of know the whole entrepreneur and running your own business part as well. But yeah, now I'm, in a different state, in a different town, and trying to do something new. So, yeah.
Yeah, so obviously you have a really cool story. And briefly for our audience, can you kind of explain how you got where you are, just kind of from the beginning all the way to now?
Yeah. So I played some, ball in high school. And then I did a little bit of club, but I to be honest, I probably started the sport a lot later than other people have, because it's not very typical for Korean Americans to look to play sports in college. I know it's a little bit more popular now, but back in our day, it wasn't something that we thought was possible. So I kind of did the typical, you go to college, you get your college degree and you start working. And I played club in college as well. I didn't play varsity volleyball. I didn't know I was good enough to play. And looking back, I probably was good enough to play, collegiately, but, unfortunately I didn't have, the resources or the support that, maybe some of the, players have now. So I majored in computer and information systems, minored in economics, worked in IT for about 5 or 6 months, decided that sitting behind a computer wasn't for me. I wanted to be around people. So I went back to school and got my post-bac. I did a post-bac program at Temple and got my teaching cert in health and phys ed. And all while doing that, I actually ran into a former club director that I played for, and she asked me if I was interested in coaching. So after I graduated college, about a year later, I got into high school coaching and started coaching club as well. And it just kind of took off from there. So it definitely wasn't a career path that I was, planning on getting into. But, instead I racked up some college, debt and, didn't use any of my degrees really in what I'm doing now. I mean, a little bit of the teaching stuff, yes, but for the most part, I kind of, learned as I went. So yeah, I ended up here just by chance, and I love what I do. So I'm lucky that I'm in a field that I get to do what I love doing every day. And really, I guess I don't call it work. I just call it, I get to go to volleyball. So
Yeah. No, that's awesome, Susan. I think you're also missing some of the colleges that you were at. So if you could tell our audience, what colleges were you at?
yeah, I started out at Holy Family, which is a Division II school in Philadelphia. I had a brief stint at LaSalle, which was Division I. I went back to Holy Family, then moved up the ranks and went to Ryder in New Jersey. And then I was at Georgetown for a year as well, until, I had some family stuff going on at home. So I decided to come back home, returned back to Ryder for a year, and then I got this job. So yeah, I got to, coach in the Big East for a little bit too. So
Let's go. Let's go.
yeah.
And I'm so proud just being a Korean because you don't find too many coaching, let alone athletes, but coaching is so rare because coaching comes with a rich history of playing the sport, knowing the sport. So representing our culture That is like a huge benefit to our community. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Now, kind of going along the lines of that, I think you mentioned some of the setbacks that you had, obviously, being, an Asian American, a Korean American, I think a lot of us are told to, let's just say, do well academically, or we're not really encouraged to do sports. Like, what kind of barriers did you face with that, and how did you overcome those barriers? And give me your thought process on all that and what your thoughts are now.
Yeah. I would say my biggest barriers, in all honesty, is just not knowing what was available.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you kind of know what you know, and our parents are definitely not, going out of their way to find out, what's out there for
Right.
us. So,
Right.
I was lucky in the sense that my parents supported me playing and coaching, for the most part. But it was mostly just knowing what was available, what I could have done, and thinking back, like there could have been so many more opportunities for me, and I just didn't know. So, as I became a coach, that was one of my biggest, I guess, motivations, to try and give that to the athletes that I didn't have those chances, and I always wanted to make sure, like, hey, you're good enough to play in college, or if you need help, these are some of the things that I've kind of done myself. So I had to figure out a lot of things on my own, by trial and error. So it probably took me a little bit longer to get to where I was.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, like I wouldn't say, I guess my biggest barriers is just, just not knowing and having to figure all that out as I went. So yeah.
Yeah, so now that you are officially a head coach of, obviously a Division I program, I'm just curious. This is just more out of me asking out of curiosity. Like, how does that work with recruiting? Is that something that you're now in charge of? Is it like the movies where you have like scouts out there and, going
Yeah.
to AAU camps and stuff? Like, how's that work?
Yeah. So, depending on the program, right now I have two assistant coaches, but they're
Yeah,
one's a volunteer and one's part-time.
yeah,
So I'm still doing a lot of the stuff outside of practices on my own.
okay,
Typically when you have, multiple people, like I was, the recruiting coordinator at Georgetown. But that doesn't mean that other staff members aren't out there recruiting.
right,
So it really depends on what the head coach is looking for, and how they want to divvy up the responsibilities.
right,
Sometimes head coaches are very involved. Sometimes they kind of leave it up to their assistants or their recruiting coordinators to kind of do all of that. So as I started coaching, the responsibilities of recruiting have gotten heavier for sure. And definitely here, I'm the only one doing it.
okay. Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
it's from going through emails, looking at film, going out and watching, players play. Because I got hired so late here, I had one opportunity to go out to nationals in Chicago in the summer to go watch, some players play. So you basically go to tournaments and you kind of walk around. You have like a list of kids that you're looking at, and you kind of evaluate them.
Right.
Right now, since I'm in season, it's really tough for me to go out to watch players play, live. So a lot of my recruiting is based off of film,
Right.
which you're watching their highlight reels and stuff like that. So you're obviously seeing the good stuff. So once you get kind of further along with some of the players, then you're asking for like full match film. So you can see, kind of when they're maybe not involved in the play, or what they're doing on the sidelines or things like that. So yeah, once our season's over, for Division I, we're in a quiet period from December 1st till I think it's like February, like right the Friday before President's Day weekend.
Yeah, yeah.
And then so President's Day weekend is opening weekend for us to go out and start traveling and recruiting in person. So until then, unless I can get out to some stuff now, which is hard because I'm one person. I know some of the other staffs, other teams that have multiple staff members, there'll be an assistant coach that'll go fly somewhere to go watch a kid play at their high school game or something like that. But I can't do that, nor do I have the resources to just like hop on a plane, anytime that I want. So, you kind of have to be very strategic about what trips you're making and what tournaments you want to attend to be able to see players live. So my next class that I'm looking at is the 24 class, which is the kids that'll be incoming fall of 24.
Right.
So most of my recruiting for that class is going to be based off of film. And then the 25 class, I can start making a list of, players that I want to go see, and then I go see them live.
So, like rivals and prep, like they have like ratings, like 5-star, 4-star, 3-star rating, like players and stuff. I don't know if they have that with volleyball players, but considering that, your program is on the smaller scale, you're not Georgetown at the end of
Right.
the day, right?
Right.
So like, how do you compete with recruiting? Like, there has to be a certain strategy behind that, right? Like, are you recruiting more so locally? You're trying to get local talent. Are you like, what's kind of like your pull, your kind of like your secret sauce to get people into your program?
Well, there is rankings for volleyball as well. And I'm definitely not going to be getting those kinds of kids, right? Those are the Power Five, and you're talking about the top elite programs within the Power Five programs that are getting these kids.
Right.
So I know there's even within the recruiting, like the athletes themselves, they're ranked sometimes, and then you have certain programs that are like, oh, they're getting like their class that they're bringing in has a ranking as well, because of the number of kids that they're getting within the ranks and stuff like that. So to be honest, I'm not probably going to be touching any of that. For me, it's I do have the opportunity to recruit, countrywide. It's going to be, I mean, I'm talking to kids from California, Texas, Florida, Chicago. I am talking to some local kids, Georgia. So there is, a lot of, there's a good amount of volleyball players out there.
Right.
So there is a lot to look at. But I do feel like I'm kind of behind the game as far as the next two classes probably.
Right.
Because even the 25s are starting to commit and stuff like that, or they already have.
Right.
But I'm also looking internationally as well. So
nice.
I got kids from Europe. There's some kids from Italy, Turkey, that I've been talking to recently. So it's all over the world and all over the country. So it's not just limited. There are plenty of volleyball players to kind of go around. I just have to find them,
That seems kind of fun too, in a sense where like, I don't know, like when I played NCAA, like college football, like there's a section of the game that makes it kind of fun where you get to recruit and you're like trying to talk to student athletes and stuff. So it kind of reminds me of that. So yeah, no, that seems pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, apart from that, like your day to day, what's that overall look like for you, like on season, off season?
Yeah, right now during the season, a lot of my time is, administrative work, whether it be, planning the trips, writing itineraries, figuring out where they're going to eat, from that little stuff to recruiting, sending out emails, having Zoom calls, planning visits if they're trying to come to campus, if we're that far along in the process and they want to come and see the campus, scouting, seeing who we're going to be playing and trying to dive into, the data and the analytics and trying to figure out what our game plan is. Practice planning is also part of the day. Dealing with the student athletes themselves, like if they come in and there's stuff that they want to talk about, or, with academics, I have, study hall that I'm monitoring as well. So it's right now, just because I'm the only person that's here all day, I have to wear many hats.
Yeah.
So I go from taking care of the logistics of the program, budgeting, to, monitoring study hall, to planning the trips, and to recruiting and scouting. So it's a little bit of everything every day. I don't have a set routine. It's just kind of what, I guess I'm just trying to like that day prioritize what's more important and, what deadlines I have to meet and stuff like that. Cause I'm constantly having to, like I just finished an itinerary for a trip for next week. But I'm still having to scout for the team that we're playing this weekend, while monitoring study hall, at the same time. So, it's all over the place, but it's constantly busy.
So what, Susan, so what would you say is like a common misconception then that people have for you and just coaching in general?
That you just come in and show up for practice, you blow a whistle, and then you go home. Yeah. It's not like that. I'm averaging about 14, 15 hours in the office. including 2-3 hours of practice every day too. So
and for our listeners, that's probably because you are wanting to, like, you actually genuinely care about your job, and you want your students to succeed, and you want the
correct.
program obviously to succeed, and you have the best interest of the program.
Yeah, no, there's definitely coaches who clock in and clock out. They'll show
Yeah.
up right before practice and leave right after practice. I can't do that.
Right.
Like you said, like I'm invested and I want what's best for the program and the players here. So, you get what you put in to it for sure.
Okay. So, one of the things that you mentioned to me prior to us even starting the show is that you almost, it seems as if you inherited the program, like you came in midway of the season. So, you did mention to me that you guys are what, 1-18, right?
Yeah.
So you have your first win apparently. So congratulations.
Thank you. It just
Um,
happened on Friday. Yeah.
So with that being said, like what are some things that you've noticed that needs to change in the program? And what are some things that you feel like you guys are doing really well in?
Coming in, the previous coach, the one that coached here through the fall, uh, she, unfortunately, she was a clock in, clock out type of coach. So there wasn't a ton of investment in the program. So, I mean, everything from the ground up had to be, I guess, installed or built, when I got here. So once they let go of that coach in the fall, they did hire somebody in January, but then she ended up taking another job in April. So she was only here for a few months. And during that time, they transitioned from Division 2 to Division 1. And then they went through the hiring process again and then hired me. So there was a lot of, I know from a cultural standpoint, even from like an emotional and mental health standpoint for the players, it was a huge roller coaster for them. Finally, administration makes a change for the better and they bring in another coach, and then she only is here for a few months. So I know it kind of like really messed with the kids a little bit. But then coming in, I kind of had to change, the expectations and the standards and all of that. And really it has nothing to do with the transition from Division 2 to Division 1. It's just running a good collegiate program. Having to start with, the standards, what the expectations are, what I think we need to make sure that we're paying attention to, versus, basically they kind of ran amok before, and there was really no structure, and I had to kind of come in and instill that. So that was something that was very different for them, but I'm used to that. I've been the new coach in a program and having to do all of that, so it wasn't new to me. But I knew that there was a lot of building that had to be done. The previous coach didn't recruit well. So even at the Division 2 level, excuse me, they weren't very successful. So there was a certain talent level that I was working with. And even on top of that, there was a lack of training here as well. So, training was really important, just making sure that they're learning how to instill certain systems. And they were all a bunch of individuals playing, right? And volleyball, just like football, is, the ultimate team sport. Like everyone has to play their role in order for everything to, go well. So just making sure that they understood, one, the fundamentals of the different skills that are involved, and then how do we put that all together? So from an X's and O's standpoint, and from a volleyball, technical standpoint, all that stuff had to be trained. And then the structure of, again, the standards, if you're not 10 minutes early, you're late. How to set up the gym for practice, how we're going to conduct ourselves in an airport when we're traveling, things that most people probably don't think about, like you said. But all these things are so important in running a program, because you're also trying to teach them life lessons, like this is what's going to fly in the real world, what's not going to fly, or, paying attention to the details outside of, the volleyball court, that will then translate to paying attention to the details in, on the court. So just, covering from A to Z, and, anywhere from, the sky to the ground. Like, I mean, it's everything. They had to, we
Right.
kind of had to retrain. So, and we're still in that process now because they're also getting used to me as a coach. So,
Right.
yeah.
So what kind of culture are you trying to create or recreate?
Yeah. I mean, I know some people are kind of against it, but I am trying to build like a family type of atmosphere here. You know, this is their home away from home. You know, they spend a lot of time with each other. I spend a lot of time with them. And a lot of times, like I even know things that their parents might not even know, you know. So there is definitely an intimacy with collegiate athletics. You know, you're just spending a lot of time with one another, and you see you see a lot of the good and you see a lot of the bad, right? You see the struggles, you see you know, if they're struggling with their academics or if they're just struggling with their mental health. You know, you're a coach has to just wear so many different hats. You know, so yeah, like I'm trying to build a type of culture where they feel very comfortable, you know, being away from home and that their parents trust me to take care of their daughters. You know, so it's a pretty big role, right? Like
Right.
you're
Right.
helping them. These are such like formidable years for them as they try to grow and figure out what kind of people they want to be. And you know, they're trying to also figure out their career paths and all of that. So
Right.
it's an interesting time in their lives to be a part of, and there's definitely huge rewards for it too, like getting invited to their weddings when once they graduate and you know become adults and go down that path, or watch them have babies, you know, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So
Yeah.
um yeah, trying to build like a family type of atmosphere where they can, you know, learn to grow and become better versions of themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think your take on it is so important considering the fact that, you know, it's already hard enough to make it to a collegiate level and play a sport. And then obviously it's another level to make it a living, you know, whether even if you want to be like a coach or you know, or run a clinic at some level, as a Division 1 athlete, like making it to the pros is probably not a statistical chance, you know. So you know, I think that it sounds as if you're trying to create an environment where you're preparing women to be better leaders in the real world and also understanding the realities of the real world. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a great thing. Um, Now, what's your kind of take on that? Like, where do you find a lot of where do you find a lot of the students like after they complete their collegiate career in volleyball? Do they kind of like what do they end up becoming? They end up becoming doctors, accountants. Like, what do they do? Like, tell me
Yeah.
kind of like what ends up happening after that.
I mean, a little bit of everything. I know
Yeah,
people who I know a lot of nurses,
yeah,
accountants, you know, there's I if they're computer science majors, I know there's people that are
right.
some of my players are making significantly more money than I am, and they just graduated like a year ago, you
Yeah,
know. Yeah, they're I mean, as far as their career paths, like they're all over in whatever they're passionate in. I've been, you know, being at Holy Family, you get a lot of nursing majors. So you see, you know, a lot of them out there being successful nurses, teachers, um, yeah, just communications. Like, there's a little bit of everything. So it's cool
beautiful.
to kind of see them do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. So, I mean, apart from that, like, do you have anything else that you wanted to add that I might have missed in this interview, or anything else that you wanted to share about your program?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were just having these conversations with the other coaches and stuff. You know, you brought up a point of, you know, what is it that you do on a day to day? Because I think a lot of people probably think you just come in, you blow the whistle, and then you go home. But
Yeah.
I think one of the what I love about this job is you get to do a little bit of everything.
Hmm.
I know some people don't like the administrative stuff, but like those are things that I oddly enjoy doing. But those are things that are very necessary to be able to have the program run. And there's things that I can do in my sleep, but then there's things that just take up a lot of time. I love having the practice plan and figure out, you know, training wise what to do. But yeah, there's a lot more to this job than people think. Sometimes you have to be like a psychologist, you know, and sit here and have conversations with the players about sometimes some pretty dark things, right?
Right.
They're college kids, so they're struggling with a lot of different things. But yeah, doing that, managing, your roster, also managing yourself and trying to, take time for yourself and be able to make sure that you don't burn out, while doing all of this. And yeah, and I think you mentioning like, that these are young women trying to, go through college and then eventually become, adults in the real world. And that's another thing too, especially as a female myself, trying to teach them to be strong females,
Mm-hmm.
like stick up for yourself and advocate for yourself, and don't say sorry for things that you shouldn't be saying sorry for. Because when they make a mistake in the gym, they're like, sorry, sorry, sorry. And you're like, what are you sorry for? Right? Like volleyball is a game of errors. There's going to be errors, and just trying to teach them, those kinds of things too. So hopefully I'm setting a good example, myself, through my actions and stuff. But yeah, just making it a better experience for them. But it is hard, like you said. They're full-time college students and they're full-time athletes. My team this year is traveling a lot. So
Yeah.
just trying to, navigate through everything is difficult. And again, just talking with other coaching friends, we're like, if you had like a day in the life of, and you came and sat down and watched what we do on a daily basis, I think a lot of people would be,
Yeah.
very surprised about what this job actually entails.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would say coaching in the gym and in games are probably, the smallest percentage compared to all the other things that you have to juggle. So, especially in a school that doesn't have a ton of resources,
Right.
when you're a one-man show or one-woman show, there's a lot of things that you have to do, and you don't have a ton of staff members to do it. So, but in all of that, it's very, like I said, very rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
When I most recently went to a former player's wedding, and there's, teammates that were a part of her bridal party and stuff like
That's so
that.
cool.
And yeah, and one of them, who is a nurse, came up to us, and, I was there with Jeff, who I coached with for many years. She's like, I'm a little tipsy right now, but I wanted to, just say that all that stuff that I learned in college and in that like team setting, like that really carries over to what I'm doing in my job now. Like being an ER nurse, like we need to work together as a team, and
Yeah.
she's like, it's so crazy how many people don't know how to do that.
Right.
And, thankfully I had that opportunity playing, for you guys, and you guys really instilling those standards for us, and understanding how important it is to communicate and do all of that. So just seeing how they're applying it in the real world is cool as well. So, yeah.
No, that's so awesome, Susan. One thing I want to mention is I did interview my former cross country coach from high school,
Mhm.
and he was definitely one of the most impactful human beings in my high school career. Not only because he was a really good with X's and O's, like he was really good to coach, but he always brought in a sense of camaraderie to the team.
Mhm.
And it doesn't sound like it's a lot, only because like cross country is not really a sexy sport, right? All it is you run, right? But just having the ability to be friends with someone on season as well as off season, like we were doing summer miles together. Some of us were going summer camps, like running camps together, and then we would have like pasta nights. Like it
Mhm.
was just like those moments of time where there was a sense of bonding, but then it also taught me by the time when I was a senior to be a leader, leading by example, as you mentioned, right? So those are all things that he instilled. And without you even knowing it, you kind of realize it until you become of age, right? So
Yep.
therefore, I think that story that you mentioned, like your students now are they're adults and they're getting married, and now they're telling you,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's those moments of time at that very moment where they don't even notice that they're changing as human beings for the better.
Yeah.
So such a blessing for you to do that. And that's why I wanted to specifically do this interview with you, because I think it's so important for people to know the impact coaches make whether it's volleyball, whether it's cross country, whether it's in life, it doesn't matter, right? We all need some form of mentoring and leadership, and really appreciate that. And it also helps that you're Korean, so
Yeah.
for the culture, that's what's up. So yeah, I mean, I'll end with one last question. Where can our listeners find and know more information about you?
Oh man. I guess, I mean, on a real day-to-day thing, probably following like my Instagram or my Facebook, I guess, is the most, up-to-date stuff. But I mean, my bio on my, college website probably has a lot of stuff, but I'm not a big I try to keep up with my social media, but it's sporadic. It's more for me to kind of have the records, it's my own like photo album, if that makes sense. But
Right.
yeah, yeah, I guess the most, up to date stuff is probably like my bio. But if people really want to get to know me, they can always reach out to me. Because I love having conversations with people. I hate interviews, but but I'll do, I love having conversations with people, and like you said, getting to know them and knowing their story and stuff like that. Because I think there's a lot more to people than people realize sometimes, right?
Right.
Like you and I went to church together, but like me as a volleyball coach, but other than that, you don't really get to know people until you're spending a lot more time with having deeper conversations, for sure. So
And fun fact for the audience, Susan is not just a good volleyball player. She is a hell of a softball player, because during these church tournaments that we have, these softball tournaments, every team makes the mistake of pulling their outfield towards the infield, and she smacks it over their head. So fun fact, everyone, she can smack the ball.
Oh man, yeah. I miss playing. I want to
Yeah,
play.
we got to get you back over here. We got to
I
get
know.
back when you get a chance.
Hopefully I can make it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
always a pleasure talking to you and having this conversation. It's just honestly a pleasure. But yeah, I'll put in your information in the description and links below. And yeah, I'll look forward to talking to you later.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for
All
having
right.
me.
Take care.
John Lee Real Estate, find you the best rate. All throughout Philly like Schuylkill Expressway. Talking to people who out of the 215, even the 267, who always helping like, oh, no time for no student.